Good morning. It is Thursday, October 23rd, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, a 3-month-old Israeli baby is killed and 8 others injured in a terror attack in Jerusalem as a Palestinian man drives his car into a crowd in the city's rail station. Deadly attacks rock Canada's parliament. Is the Islamic State organization behind them? And later on the show, something lighter, traveling the world on a gin mission. The very cool life of a global gin ambassador. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi. We begin with the main news of the day, the terror attack carried out last evening in Jerusalem. Breaking news in the Middle East here. And we start, first of all, with Jerusalem Police Chief of, foreign press spokesman of the police Jerusalem, Mickey Rosenfeld. Mickey Rosenfeld on the phone with us. Mickey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can you run us by exactly what happened yesterday in the early evening hours in Jerusalem?
Just after 6 o'clock early evening, what we knew and what we saw from the scene is that there was a terrorist who was driving a vehicle, slammed into the sidewalk, hitting 9 people that were there, including women, children, and families, next to the light railway stop in Jerusalem, a main stop where there's normally tens of people at that hour just after work. Unfortunately, 9 people were taken to hospital, 3 of them being in serious condition, including, unfortunately, the baby that passed away, a 3-month-old baby that passed away of the wounds. Immediately after the attack, a police officer that was in and around the area responded, saw the suspect running out of the vehicle, and he was shot at relatively close range by the undercover officer, and that prevented the rest of any incidents developing immediately after that.
Now, what do we know about the assailant? Who is this man? Where did he come from?
Well, an ongoing investigation has taken place immediately after the incident. What we know is that the suspect was from Silwan, East Jerusalem. We know that he had a background and already served in Israeli jails for being connected to terrorism incidents. Since then, since the attack itself, we've heightened security in and around in Jerusalem, including extra police units that are being deployed in different areas. And therefore, our main emphasis at the moment is making sure that Jerusalem will be less tense and that heightened security will be implemented immediately.
Now, this was followed by a series of clashes, actually, in and around East Jerusalem. What happened last night? There were clashes. There was in Silwan, Kalandia as well?
That's correct. There were disturbances, local disturbances by Israeli Arabs, both in Isawiyah, Wadi Jor, and other areas of East Jerusalem. That was something that was expected, and as far as we're concerned, the different units will continue to respond as long as necessary. Also looking ahead to the next 24 hours, Friday prayers in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount, and therefore security assessments will be made later on today.
Now, this is something that's coming on the heels of, the Silwan neighborhood, the dispute over houses there, settlers moving in. Is there more security around Silwan? What is expected today? Well,
first of all, Silwan is a completely separate incident, differentiating completely between a terrorist attack that was aimed at killing as many Israelis as possible. In Silwan, there's different issues that we're dealing with, and that's part of what's going on in East Jerusalem in general with local incidents of stone throwing. Due to the fact that the families that are moving in there, it's got nothing to do with the terrorist attack that took place yesterday. Well,
there are discussions, though, that the assailant is a Silwan, was a Silwan resident. Is that not the fact?
That is a fact, but we know the fact as well that he was connected to a terrorist organization. That was already mentioned and confirmed yesterday as part of the ongoing investigation, as well as government officials. And we know he was already served 3 times in Israeli jails for terrorist incidents. Now,
this has been a busy month for Jerusalem. Walk me through a little bit through security. Is there discussion also with the government to heighten security other than just police in and around Jerusalem?
At the moment, our main emphasis is Jerusalem. We're working together also with the municipality. A number of strategic decisions have been made over the last 48 hours, including heightened security, including using more intelligence, different security circles working together, concentrating on preventing as well as responding, and also technology and intelligence will be implemented in a new program that is emphasized on the East Jerusalem, different Arab neighborhoods.
What program in East Jerusalem? What heightening security in and around East Jerusalem? Are there any calls, any kind of information that more attacks are expected throughout the next coming days?
No, we had no specific intelligence that was received about an attack. This was a lone individual terrorist that decided to carry out the attack. He chose an area which was busy, easy to target, and therefore it's necessary on a ground level to step up patrols, increased security measures, and that's what's exactly taking place in Jerusalem in order to make sure that our units will be ahead of time in the different areas that could be problematic.
Now, when it comes to a place like the light rail station, we all saw the footage of the car smashing into the light rail in Jerusalem, Ammunition Hill. In terms of security in those places, is there anything planned to try and protect public transportation areas when people driving cars, when in this case a Palestinian man, actually turn their cars into a lethal weapon?
That's correct. I mean, we experienced that as well also 2.5 months ago when we had the Arab worker with his tractor, something that was sporadic. It's very difficult to prevent every incident. What I can confirm is that the Israeli police and undercover units and border police are preventing those types of incidents almost on a regular basis. As soon as we have strong intelligence, our police units respond, find those individuals, find those possible terrorists even before they leave their homes and try and attempt to attack Israelis on the street. But obviously you cannot prevent every single attack from taking place. What I can confirm is the Israeli police are doing everything possible in order to implement security in Jerusalem over the forthcoming days.
Mickey Rosenfeld, Israeli National Police spokesman, thank you for joining us this morning from Jerusalem. And we are, first of all, the Israeli government had several things to say yesterday after the attack. Benjamin Netanyahu blamed Mahmoud Abbas, president of the Palestinian Authority, directly. Let's hear what Mark Regev, the spokesman for the Israeli government, had to say yesterday evening on camera after the attack in Jerusalem.
Today's terror attack in Jerusalem, the attack on a mother and baby, is typical of Hamas, President Abbas's partner in the Palestinian government. President Abbas himself, unfortunately, continues to use inflammatory rhetoric, inciting against Israelis. This instead of being a force for peace and reconciliation.
We are joined on the phone now by the member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council, Dimitri Diliani, joining us from Jerusalem. Dimitri, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, I'm sure you've heard also Mark Regev, the spokesman for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, specifically pointing the finger at Mahmoud Abbas for being responsible for the latest attack in Jerusalem, which killed an Israeli baby and injured 7 other people. I mean, what is the reaction within the Palestinian Authority?
Well, it is, first of all, sad that the Israeli government is trying to invest in a baby's blood to score political points. This is clearly a mere accident. And the guy who lost control of his car, Shaludi, stepped out of the car to help the injured. That's when he was shot 3 times in the back. So, by this, first of all,
Mr. Diliani, we can see we have seen it, Mr. Diliani.
My sources are family and eyewitnesses.
But we have footage. We have footage of the attack itself. This is not a loss of control. There is security cameras footage showing this car not losing control, but rather steering very deliberately into a crowded train station. I mean, it's very hard to claim.
I tell you something. I challenge that, because why would he get out of the car to help the injured?
He wasn't getting out of the car to help the injured. There is footage of the man trying to run away, Mr. Liani, and that fact, and we're looking at that footage right now.
No, he got out of the car. He was shot when he was out of the car. And this is the thing that the Israeli government is trying to employ everything and invest in everything, even its own people's blood, in order to score political points. It proves that for the right-wing government of Israel, it doesn't matter if the blood that's spilled is Israeli or Palestinian, they're willing to do anything to employ it and invest in scoring political points. And this is actually very sad. And what's even more sad, that Israeli media is running blindly after its government's false claims. Nobody even bothered to contact the family, contact eyewitnesses to come out with the truth. And I don't expect every Israeli citizen to look after the truth, him or herself, and invest a lot of their time doing so.
Well,
they trust in their media, which has been total disappointment in such an attack. And on the other hand, this is extrajudicial murder committed by the guards, by the police. Because if that was the case, you could have done much more to stop him, arrest him, investigate, and if he deserves life in prison, let it be.
Then let me ask you this, irrespective of that, let's say now that you have your idea of what happened yesterday. We were showing footage of what happened, of the car steering into the crowd. But is there going to be any response from the Palestinian Authority? Because clearly right now there is no condemnation that came out of the Palestinian Authority. There's no statement that came out of the Palestinian Authority. And there is information, there is confirmed information that the assailant, that the person who drove the car, has been connected to Hamas in the past and was also in Israeli jail for disruption and for violence in and around Jerusalem. So are we expecting any kind...
The guy is 20 years old. What do you think his crime would be? So he didn't spend much time in prison. In other words, if he was involved in any violent action against the state of Israel, then he would have spent much more time and would not be out at age 20. So what he's done might be rioting or political. In other words, he's not of the violent nature that the Israeli media is trying to present to the people. The guy is only 20 years old. He wouldn't have time if he was that violent, of that nature, to spend time in jail and come out and be free at age 20. That's one. Two, the Palestinian Authority will not issue any position on this because the eyewitnesses, the family, everybody says it's a mere accident. Israel is trying to make this out of something that it's not, clearly not for us. So why would we condemn a car accident? Does Netanyahu condemn car accidents, killing Palestinians? And I want to tell you something, that an Israeli settler killed, just 2 days ago, killed a Palestinian baby and injured another baby and ran off. Did the Israeli government condemn that action? No, they did not. And he ran off too. So why you trying to tell me that this is a terrorist attack and what happened 2 days ago in the West Bank is not a terrorist attack? Why is this double standard? While this man, the Shallodi, is in his town rightfully and the settler is illegally in our property, in our land, killing our babies, while your TV station and Israeli media did not even mention that.
Okay. Mr. Diliani, once again, clearly divergent opinions on what exactly happened, which is usually the essence of what happens here in the Middle East. But thank you very much for joining us this morning from Jerusalem. Dimitri Diliani, member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council. We are joined now on the phone by Jacob Perry, Israeli government member, actually the Minister of Science, Technology and Space, former Shin Bet head. Mr. Jacob Perry, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yael.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We have heard this morning also Mark Regev, the spokesman for Benjamin Netanyahu, pointing the finger directly at Mahmoud Abbas, Palestinian Authority president. Further to that, we have a Palestinian Fatah member saying that this was not a terror attack, rather an accident, and Israel is turning this, actually a car accident, and Israel is turning this into a terror attack. What is the reaction of the government? What is expected to be done?
First of all, it's not an accident. It's clearly a terrorist act, intentionally, and by trying to diverse it to an accident is cynical. Secondly, we are on a quite explosive situation in Jerusalem, mainly in the route of the train, Shuafat, Silwan, and the suburbs of Jerusalem. And what has to be done is a basket of measures, including gathering more intelligence, making more arrests, and trying to be more balanced from Jewish extremists and Arabs, Palestinians who are living in Jerusalem and are trying to burn the coexistence in Jerusalem.
Are you referring, when you say Jewish extremists, are you referring to the situation in Silwan? Clearly, this is the man, I mean, the assailant was a resident of Silwan. Just this week, we had the whole issue of Jewish settlers moving into houses in Silwan. Tensions are high. So my first question to you, when we say trying to keep it balanced, what do you mean? And are we looking at a possible intifada in and around Jerusalem?
We cannot call it yet an intifada, but the signs are bad. It's a direction that we have to prevent, we have to stop. And yes, by buying houses in Silwan, the murder of Abu Haidar. We see a straight line of an uprising that could be stopped and should be stopped. And one of the measures is also keeping balance, and I'm trying to be diplomatically correct, and not raising more reasons for despair, for frustration, etc.
I mean, you are being balanced. I'm wondering if that represents, though, the agenda and of the entire government. When it talks, and you're part also of the negotiation teams or lack thereof, with the Palestinians. Where does this put the diplomatic process when it comes to both houses in Silwan, as you said, being bought, which lead to, as we see, also violent attacks or part of this, mayhem that is being caused in Jerusalem right now? Because the opinion you just stated, does it represent the government as well?
No, to my sorrow, the majority of the existing Israeli government now is not right in my, I would say, opinions. Yes, I think that a process that will bring us to a negotiation process that will bring us to a calmness and a coexistence between us and the Palestinians could help very, very strongly. And to my sorrow, we are not the majority. Now in the parliament, we have a majority in the Knesset, but that doesn't help right now. And one of the measures that should be taken is, yes, renewing the negotiation between us and the Palestinians, going to I would say, a whole cover of negotiation with the moderate Islamic countries that could help to calm down the situation, and that what should be done.
Is that something that the party you're part of, Yesh Atid, is trying to push Prime Minister Netanyahu? And and finally, the question to you: they're blaming that comes out of the Israeli government straight to Mahmoud Abbas for the attack yesterday. What does that serve?
First of all, my party, Yesh Atid, yes, is heavily supporting this process, and we are trying to convince our partners in the government, mainly our Prime Minister, to go in that direction. As for Mahmoud Abbas, his statement about the Al-Aqsa and the effect that Jews are dirtying or by coming to the masjid, they are, I would say, doing things that they shouldn't do. Yes, he is contributing a lot to the tension and to the effect that we are on the eve of an explosion.
Of an explosion. As it seems right now. Mr. Perry, Minister Jacob Perry, thank you very much for joining us this morning and shedding light on this attack of late last night in Jerusalem. We are joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning to you. Senior military defense analyst Amir Owen from Haaretz, and of course senior Middle East analyst for I-24 News Ali Wakat in the studio. Bad times, folks. We do believe. I want to start with you, Tal Shalev, real quickly. We just heard Jacob Perry clearly diverging. I mean, this does not sound like the opinion that came out from Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. He's trying to divert the blame from Mahmoud Abbas. What does this mean for the Israeli government, and what are they going to do in reaction to this attack?
Well, depends who you ask. For Netanyahu is trying to keep it under control. He's probably going to be engaged in security consultations all around the day, try and maintain and contain the situation. But inside his coalition, from the opposite side of the minister we just heard, from the right-wing side, yesterday, Naftali Bennett's reaction was to slam Netanyahu that the reason that there is no security and the reason there is no terror in Jerusalem is because Israel, the Israeli government has lost in the past year has lost its sovereignty on Jerusalem, is not building in Jerusalem, and is letting the violence spread in Jerusalem without taking sovereignty steps. He has a very harsh response. He says there's no sovereignty, there will be no security, and he's pressuring Netanyahu to continue building and continue the construction in Jerusalem, while Netanyahu is actually trying to implement some kind of quiet freeze. He's actually really threatening Netanyahu with a coalition. He's trying to appeal to his right-wing base, but the right-wing base is the same one that expects usually after terror attacks that the Israeli retaliation will be building. That is a traditional Israeli reaction to construct a settlement or to continue building. And this, of course, could incite even more violence and could create even more tension in this already battered city, which today is going to have a very, very tense day.
No, definitely. And Amir Oren, military defense analyst of Haaretz, question to you, the same as to Jacob Perry. Are we looking at the makings of a third intifada based in Jerusalem?
You know, on top of the eternal issues dividing Jerusalem from time immemorial, you have semi-philosophical questions. What is a terrorist? Does one have to be affiliated with an organization to commit an act? What is a weapon? We know that planes were used by Al-Qaeda, and cars and tractors can be used by individuals. And lastly, but perhaps firstly, what is Jerusalem? Is Jerusalem only the inner city, be it the western side or the eastern side, claimed by Israel as its capital? And the Palestinian Authority also demands that it become its capital following the negotiations? Or is it also suburban Jerusalem, the entire district, going as far north and south and east as possible? To Shuafat and to what is called Ma'ale Adumim and Har Choma and everywhere else. So if Israel wants to expand its settling activity, not only to the established neighborhoods of Jerusalem, but to go deeper into the heavily populated Palestinian neighborhoods, it will obviously bring about claims, no matter what the judicial status of various houses or streets is. And even if the Israeli courts support the claims of Israelis to have bought the houses and being able to move in, it will bring about what you just termed as the third intifada.
The possibility of a third intifada. And in that respect, Ali Waqid, senior Middle East analyst for I-24 News, I mean, I'd like to also, raise the same question that Amir has just raised. What is it, the terrorist attack of one person right now, who's a Silwan resident, who takes his car and attacks people, but he has an affiliation with Hamas. And Israel is already pointing fingers at Hamas. With Palestinian Authority, are they going to do anything, to that effect? Because there's a unity government forming right now. How does this bode for the unity government? Can the Palestinian Authority even come out and condemn this in any way, shape, or form, or does that also risk the possibility of Hamas and Fatah sitting together?
First of all, I want to start where Amir
left off. Go for that.
And saying when you say what is affiliated, yesterday I heard the terminology was affiliated or identified as a supporter of. Like half of the Palestinians are identified as supporters of Hamas, and the other half.
It's important to claim that Hamas did not claim responsibility for this attack as of yet, did they?
No. And officially there is no Hamas in East Jerusalem. Let's say Hamas activity in East Jerusalem is out of the law. Member of parliament that I identified as Hamas members were exiled from Jerusalem and East Jerusalem. The guy may have some sympathy to Hamas. I checked in his own family. There are members of Fatah and members of Hamas and member of the Marxist FPLP. So one cannot point to Hamas. Now I understand Dimitri Duliani when he says, well, I disagree with the description of the situation on the ground that was given by Dimitri Duliani. But yes, the Israelis want to have some political gains from pointing to Hamas as the partners of Abu Mazen. And in this regard, we can say that the Palestinian Authority cannot condemn this attack that happened 2 days after a 5-year-old girl was killed by an Israeli settler driver. There were no condemnation from the Israeli side to this accident. I checked with the Palestinian Authority whether the Israeli police tried to coordinate some operation on the ground to see whether it was or come on investigation whether it was an accident or something else. Nothing was done, and the version in the Israeli media was that the settler ran away in order to escape a lynch that the Palestinian planned. So in this atmosphere where nobody is condemning nothing,
right,
we cannot accept Abu Mazen when he see the polls, when he see that the Palestinians are fed up with this peace process. He cannot condemn something that, according to the Palestinians, it is very controversial, and especially when it comes 2 days after. Now, about what said Mark Regev, the inflammatory rhetoric of Abu Mazen, it is amazing how Abu Mazen accused Netanyahu exactly using the same terms of inflammatory rhetoric about the holy sites, and this is the real threat, that this territorial political conflict can be changed by religious conflict, and this is the big threat, the big fear of the Palestinian Authority leadership.
When it comes to Jerusalem, and before we continue that, because we are talking rhetoric, but there's also emotion involved, which will go to the heart of both the Israeli people and then, of course, on the Palestinian side, when it comes to the girl killed 2 days ago. Let's hear what the grandfather of the 3-month-old baby who was killed yesterday in Jerusalem had to say, because this is something also that the entire population of Israel will see, and probably the government of Israel will address that as well. Let's hear the grandfather of the little girl who was killed last night.
My wife Sarah left several hours ago. She's now in the airplane with my daughter. She will arrive in New York in a few hours. And the first message that she will receive will be that the beloved granddaughter, for whom we waited so long, has passed away. She still didn't land in New York, and as she will arrive, she will get this horrible message.
Of course, this is the emotional response of the grandfather of a 3-month-old girl that was killed, Batal Shalev. When we see these images, of course, we forget all the political mayhem that surrounds the actions of the last few days. But the world is watching. Yeah.
The world is watching, and just 2 days ago, the U.S. Secretary of State does say again that the status quo in the region is unsustainable. Israel has been probably ignoring Kerry's warnings, or not. Both the Israelis and the Palestinians have not been really prompting to Kerry's urging to move forward with the peace process, and Kerry has been urging that the status quo is unsustainable. And last week, he had this very unsuccessful linkage that he made between the IS and between the lack of a diplomatic process in the Middle East, which enraged many people here in Israel. But the fact is that Kerry was talking about the streets, and these are the 20-year-olds and these are the 15-year-olds that are going outside in the streets in Jerusalem today too.
No, valid point. Sadly, all the time that we have. Amir Oren, Ali Waked, Tal Shalev, thank you for being with me this morning. Of course, when we get back, more news from Canada. Terror attack there as well. First, though, the news. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I-24 News Morning Edition, October 23rd, where we are joined by Anthony Grant to give us the news you missed while scanning the headlines. And of course, this is news we could not miss.
Absolutely, yes. Dark moments for Canada, where basically we're talking about a very chaotic situation yesterday, and of course reflected in all the headlines with the basically this masked gunman who was killed after a soldier fatally shot at the National War Memorial in normally calm and tranquil Ottawa. So the guy,
but a very, representative place of, be it political,
symbolic,
national,
absolutely.
Whatnot.
Going into the House of Commons, you had Stephen Harper, who was at risk and, of course, was visibly shaken, but says Canada won't be intimidated.
No, definitely. And Stephen Harper being the Canadian Prime Minister. Let's take a look what he had to say as a response to the attack yesterday in Canada.
For the second time this week, there has been a brutal and violent attack on our soil. Fellow Canadians, in the days to come, we will learn more about the terrorist and any accomplices he may have had. But this week's events are a grim reminder that Canada is not immune to the types of terrorist attacks we have seen elsewhere around the world. But let there be no misunderstanding. We will not be intimidated. Canada will never be intimidated. In fact, this will lead us to strengthen our resolve and redouble our efforts, and those of our national security agencies, to take all necessary steps to identify and counter threats and keep Canada safe here at home. Just as it will lead us to strengthen our resolve and redouble our efforts to work with our allies around the world and fight against the terrorist organizations who brutalize those in other countries with the hope of bringing their savagery to our shores. They will have no safe haven.
You know, Tony, before my question to you, I have to say I'm looking at the Canadian Prime Minister actually give this very, somber address to the Canadian nation. But it's amazing because we're sitting in the Middle East after a morning of also attacks, terror, whatnot. Yeah. And it's such a difference, between the lingo and the representation to the public, because this is a very calm Prime Minister.
Right. And again, just to back up a bit, let's not forget it was just on Monday that a Canadian military officer was basically, run down and killed near Montreal.
Right.
So it started off being a rough week. So, and this, of course, happening in Ottawa at this very symbolic, this guy, a 24-year-old corporal, Nathan Cirillo, I believe his name, was a reservist guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier,
right.
Which, of course, is not far from the House of Commons there in Ottawa, which is normally a very calm
calm place.
You don't hear much about it. And then apparently managed to get into the building and started to go on what was heading towards a big shooting spree. And of course, he was taken out before he could get much farther with that. But at one point I think Stephen Harper was giving this speech from an undisclosed location. It was obviously not.
It's very reminiscent, of American. I have to say, I don't want to say, I'm not comparing this to 9/11. I'm going to start by saying not comparing to 9/11.
No.
But the closing, the shutting down of, of the government.
Military bases were going on lockdown throughout
everything.
Canada.
The country basically shutting down into DEFCON 5 mode in many ways.
Yeah.
But we know very little about this as a one lone assailant, right?
The guy, his name Michael Zehaf Bibo, who apparently was a recent convert to Islam. Some reports are saying he was arrested 5 times in the past, 3 times on drug convictions, and there were other issues with parole, not bad behavior, that sort of thing. So he had a criminal record, basically. Right. So he was on some police officers' radar. But again,
the fact that he has converted to Islam, because
apparently.
we've seen a lot of headlines this morning trying to connect it to the Islamic State organization. Yeah. But it's important to say that we don't know.
We don't know that yet.
Right.
And I was checking the Canadian headlines just this morning, and again, it's nothing conclusive about that as we speak right now. But I'm sure they're going to be looking at every angle.
At every angle possible.
Probably collaborating also with the American authorities on that too. I imagine.
No
with
doubt.
FBI, CIA.
No doubt. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, busy morning in Canada as well. Terror attacks throughout the world, or attacks, deadly attacks. Let's call them that. What else?
Speaking of deadly. Totally unrelated, but Ebola, of course, is still in the news and
spreading in the news.
Spreading in the news, and this is an interesting headline from the Wall Street Journal. Ebola fears sparking China pullback in West Africa. Now we know that China is actually a huge trade partner with West Africa for many reasons. It's very strategic. They actually do more trade with countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea than the United States. 10 times that, actually, the United States. $5.1 billion in trade, I believe, last year.
Okay.
It's a lot. But they're starting to pull companies and people out.
Yeah,
they're very easily, not easily, they're very concerned about what's happening. And so it's starting to have an economic impact, again, on the countries most affected by Ebola right now, because China is a heavyweight. I mean, in every sense of the word.
And God knows that Africa cannot suffer any economic losses or any investors pulling out, which clearly it's going to. Which clearly there
absolutely
ramifications that go even past the medical consequences of this latest spread of Ebola.
Speaking of the medical consequences, yesterday we touched on the fact that the World Health Organization said that vaccines were going to hopefully be tested quite soon.
Right.
Talked about some of the political overtones of that, but also the economic ones. Fortune actually says here GlaxoSmithKline is moving forward with an Ebola vaccine. We have Johnson & Johnson also.
Amazing.
The Wall Street Journal was reporting, and all of a sudden you have this sort of galvanization.
Amazing.
And let's not, this is human suffering.
I think this is great, as you said, but it's amazing that Ebola has been around for a very long time, has had several outbreaks both in the Congo and in West Africa. Prior to this latest outbreak, But again, I'm going to say this, white people in the Western world, 5 of them or 4, contracting Ebola, and vaccine all of a sudden is being pushed.
And the economics of GlaxoSmithKline is actually not doing so great in their fiscal department right now. The article points out, so an Ebola vaccine, and we do, of course, hope that it works, is going to be very good for their, fortunes.
Help them as well, yes. No, interesting point.
And back here in the Mediterranean, things are heating up in the waters off the coast of Cyprus. And this is Cyprus is actually going to be blocking Turkey's EU accession talks after an exclusive economic zone violation on Monday. This is right now it's quiet stuff. We hope it remains so, but it's very politically freighted because there's energy exploration going on actually between Cyprus and Israel's involved too in waters off the coast of the Republic of Cyprus. Of course, northern Cyprus is occupied
by Turkey. Natural gas, which could be very helpful to both countries.
Absolutely. Yes. However, as the research goes forward, the Turks have sent their own research vessel to sort of monitor and some would say bully the Cypriot side of things.
Yes,
so, interesting stuff
to look at. And we have time for one more last one, Sally.
El País reports about some social news, and a counselor at Madrid who had fired an official for being a mother has now quit himself.
Oh!
Yes.
So, see, that's the happiest news I've heard all morning.
There you go.
No. Good one, touche. Okay, there is retribution. Tony Grant, thank you for being with us this hour. We'll see you in the next hour as well. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announced last night that the organization will form a special investigation team to look into the circumstances surrounding the attacks against its facilities in Gaza during Operation Protective Edge over the summer. Ban Ki-moon spoke to the UN Security Council after returning from a visit to the Middle East, where he saw firsthand the destruction in Gaza wrought by the 50 days war between Israel and Hamas militants. That visit concluded last week. We are joined in studio by the former head of the International Law Department at the IDF, lawyer, mediator, Colonel Liron Liebman. Colonel Liebman, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. Before we take a look at what this investigation committee actually means, let's take a look at the following report.
We've addressed it. The Secretary General, even today, directly in the school, condemned weapons being put in UN schools, and the weapons that were found in the schools were schools that were abandoned. They were not guarded, they were empty. Obviously, this was a time of conflict. There was no security around these places. When UNRWA found them, it said so loud and clear. It condemned it. The Secretary General condemned it. These schools need to be inviolable. They need to be safe havens, and whether from direct attacks onto the school or from people firing from these schools are storing weapons in them.
This was actually Stéphane Dujarric, who is the spokesman for Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, his right-hand man. This is from an interview, an exclusive interview we did with him last week, discussing the fact that UNRWA actually addressed the fact that there were weapons in some of their schools, that they knew about, that they condemn it, that those were empty schools. And this is in response to the fact that Israel keeps claiming that those schools were bombed because of weapons in them. But let's start by this, Liron. When an investigative committee like that is formed, this does not look well for Israel, does it?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's really standard procedure for the UN in such a case. And after Castled operation in 2009, they did the same. It's a board of inquiry, which is an internal mechanism of the UN. And when your facilities are hit, you will want to check them. So not necessarily. It's not necessarily a bad or unexpected
not unexpected,
outcome.
But the fact that it's happening once again is because every 2 years there is a military operation in and around Gaza between or a war between Israel and Hamas, and sadly in those operations UN facilities are being hit, people, children are being killed. And when it comes to can it first of all be avoided? That's my question. And what can Israel do in response to a committee as such?
Well, first we have to remember, maybe not all viewers know, there are hundreds of UN facilities in Gaza. It's not like there are 2 or 3 facilities. No. I think there are 700. Every second school in Gaza has a UN flag. So it's a very populated urban area. Urban warfare is always complicated. So no one can give 100% guarantee that UN facilities will not be hit. Although the IDF does take, as much as I know, lots of effort to avoid hitting UN facilities. And of course, we have to remember another thing. We're not the only party firing in this war. The Hamas has launched many rockets which are inaccurate, and many of them did fall inside the Gaza Strip. So these incidents should be looked at carefully. And UN Secretary General said himself he would like to see the results of Israeli investigation. And as far as I know, there is at least one criminal investigation now by the military police on one incident of a UN facility being hit during the...
An Israeli military police investigating. Does Israel look at, post-mortem, so to speak, of these operations? Because when we're looking at schools like that, what happens if there is intelligence information, that weapons are being stored in those schools? Is there anything else that Israel can do other than just hit those facilities?
Generally speaking, I'm not sure that Israel would hit such a facility, especially if it's many refugees are there, even if there is weapon there. At least in 2009, there was afterwards many information revealed that underneath the Shifa hospital, the main hospital in Gaza, the headquarters Hamas was in Israel, did know it during the operation and did not hit the place. These are very complicated decisions. I think probably, and of course it's just a guess, in many cases it was not a problem of directly hitting UN facilities, but of fighting around these facilities. And of course there is some collateral damage in these cases if you have to hit places which are near UN facilities. And of course the Hamas does take advantage of the fact that the IDF is careful around these facilities in many cases. And I think foreign media did record some of these incidents. Rockets were launched really in the vicinity of these facilities.
Straight next to those
facilities. So that might be even a greater problem than actually weapons being held in these facilities, which is, and I think it's a good thing about the Ban Ki-moon's announcement that this also would be checked, the responsibility of UNRWA personnel for the fact that there are weapons inside schools.
Which they have, as we saw with the with Ban Ki-moon spokesman, they have admitted that there were weapons, and that there's also so much that they can do in many ways if they are living and operating in Gaza. By that I'm speaking about UNRWA and UN facilities, that they're also operating under Hamas rule in many cases. And
but they have international obligations. It's an infringement of UN neutrality to have weapons inside schools. And I think they should look very carefully at these cases. In one case, there was even a more shocking fact that the spokesman told that after they found the weapon, they gave him to local authorities. Now, who are local authorities in Gaza? Were these rockets put in the hands of Hamas, who were shooting them against the Israeli population? I think it should be looked very, very thoroughly and carefully. This could be assisting war crimes by the UN itself.
By the UN themselves, which of course, we tend to see usually just investigative committees towards Israel and its actions in many cases, sadly, rather than reversed, but a very complicated situation. Really quickly though, because you mentioned that Israel is also examining itself in cases such as this war. How does Israel look investigatively in towards the IDF actions, of where they're shooting, what they're shooting? How does that process work?
Well, yeah, as you said, there is an obligation under international law to look at allegations of war crimes or infringements of international law. And there is a mechanism for it. In some cases where it's clear there are criminal behavior, then instantly there are criminal investigation. In more complicated cases where there is damage, but you don't know
who perpetrated it
or what were the circumstances, there would be a fact-finding assessment by a mechanism, and then the military advocate general will have a decision whether to instigate the...
Colonel, thank you so much for joining us this morning, again, shedding light on the issue. When we get back, something different. Back to the Future 30th anniversary will be marked with a special feature in 2015. Something lighter. Stay with us. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Thursday, October 23rd, 2014. This is still the morning edition. I am still Yael Aviv, who usually brings you death and destruction. And we're going to take a switch in this hour of the show. and try to go something lighter because we are joined by the fabulous, and blonde, Gabi Tartakova. No, I'm just kidding. By Netta Achitova, or environmentalist.
I love your adjectives.
I know, don't you? Yeah, exactly. Who brings us, you're the environmentalist guru, mama, with anything and everything that we should watch to keep this planet clean and safe, and possibly before we kill each other.
Exactly.
And then Gabi Tartakova is going to listen. And then we're going to move to you very carefully. Yes.
So we'll start with the Far East. In China, 20,000 people didn't listen to a health hazard saying you should not run in Beijing during this day because
you can't breathe.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And they did run. It was a big international marathon. They ran from Tiananmen Square to Bird's Nest.
Yeah. With gas masks.
Yes, with gas masks. The World Health Organization really signed a warning, said,
don't go out there.
And people ran, and nothing
Look at that.
happened.
You can't, I mean, it's not even the issue of you cannot see sky anymore. Is you cannot see anything anymore.
It's crazy. Yeah, this is the result of coal energy.
This is the result of people who
and many cars.
And many cars.
Yes.
So how many people tried to run?
20,000, and so far, it was on Sunday, and so far everybody is fine. And,
we saw them running with the gas masks.
They are doing fine. No casualties.
My God, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Listen to the World Health Organization.
Thank you for trying. Which leads us to our second story. On Thursday in Berlin, 200 scientists, but like really the best in their field. Yes, in their field. Climate researchers, geologists, environmentalists. They all met in order to discuss about ending our geological era and opening a new one. We are now in the Holocene. This is the geological epoch. It's been 11,700 years that
we've been in that.
Yes, in this
epoch. 11,000. How much?
700 years.
700 years.
Yes.
Okay, that's a long time.
And it's time to end it and to call a new era called the Anthropocene. Anthropocene is the human epoch, humankind epoch, and you can guess why. Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking about it here in our environmental.
Does that mean that this is an era where we humans need to take responsibility?
Yes. Or no, that we already did. Since the Industrial Revolution, we are changing the Earth as never changed before. Yes, no other species ever did what we're doing
to change the environment, to change the weather, to change.
Yes, exactly. Air, land, water.
I'm looking at a very dark picture here.
Yes, and actually, it's an interesting story. The term Anthropocene was coined by Paul Crutzen. He's a Dutch chemist, a Nobel laureate, and he said, and he's a chemist. He's not a geologist.
Which means people listen to him.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And he said we've changed the world, the planet so much that we should call a new era. And at the beginning it was like a joke, and some journalists liked it because it's it's sexy,
funny,
it's
nice.
Funny. But now it's becoming serious.
Like, no, really.
And in 2 years they're going to declare
here's my question to you: does that mean that it's basically we're seeing longer winters? We're seeing, sort of summer.
The planet
is evolving according
differently. Okay. And the natural phenomena are different because of humankind, because of actually the Industrial Revolution, and since that, and it's the worst since the 50s.
Really?
Yes.
So it's gotten so bad that we actually need to change the name of
the geological era.
Of the geological era.
Yes,
yeah.
To humankind.
I'm wondering
epoch.
out loud, I'm just wondering if the dinosaurs had such a press release at a certain point there, that it is time to change, the name of the era, and then they all went extinct.
Yes.
Yes. I hinted at this right now.
Yeah,
okay.
This is a big hint.
This is a big hint. Big hint.
Yes.
Dinosaurs extinct. Yes. Okay.
In the Rio Plus 20, the very famous UN committee in 2012, everybody that arrived there received this huge video on a huge screen saying, "Welcome to the Anthropocene."
And in the background they played "It's the End of the World as you know it." Yeah.
Something like that.
Something to that effect. Okay.
But
yes. Happy news.
We're ending with optimistic news because at this film in Rio they ended up with, but we can change it. it's not,
But we can-
terminal.
there's
There's still
something
things
we can
to do.
do.
Yeah. So let's see 3 things that we can do. For
Amen.
example, Martin Sheen from West Wing, Apocalypse Now,
And
just
father of Charlie Sheen.
Yes, exactly. So he gave his name, as you see, Martin Sheen, to a ship of the Sea Shepherd organization. It's a really famous, or not famous, but it's a big environmental
He's a big
organization.
environmentalist, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He's a very big
And this Sea Shepherd is known for their campaigns for the ocean and the ocean creatures, and they are known for harassing Japanese ships that are whaling. And actually, they're quite successful in that because everybody knows today that we're not supposed to whale.
Yes, no, actually true. Actually true.
Yeah, so
it works for them.
they are you can say they're a successful
Their
organization.
anarchism was good. Which again, I think in this respect, when we look at, is it Greenpeace?
Greenpeace,
They keep getting arrested.
Yes, Greenpeace are very good at PR, so they are, I think, walking this path. And this ship is going to work specifically on ocean pollution and more specifically plastic pollution. There is a French female captain to the ship, and she's already done 5 campaigns before.
And I got to tell you that this is such a blessed and wonderful initiative, and because Gabi's here, he probably remembers. I think that if he would have his son join on something like that, maybe he would help him channel certain aggressions towards something. Yeah, we're speaking of Charlie Sheen.
That's true.
Yes, and
yes.
And
so I'll skip the numbers because they're depressing.
No, and the other thing,
100 million animals are dying because of plastic in the ocean, and
100 million animals are dying because.
Yeah, this is the numbers, and this is what Martin Sheen said after he broke the champagne.
What did he say? What did Martin Sheen say? Do we have it?
No, we don't have it. But he said, "I'll tell you, 100 million animals are dying. Plastic is the biggest predator in the ocean these days."
100 million is a staggering number. It's a staggering number.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yep.
Yes. The
and
other thing we can
from
do.
Hollywood glam to really simple guy in Mali, a very sweet one, Umar Diatabe, he found out a way to make the land that is really terrible land in Mali, really poor quality, to make it fertile. As you can see, this is his farm, and he's actually teaching everybody. He's really, really popular, and he's teaching everybody how to do it. He has, it's called agroecology. It's like a natural approach to land, and no chemicals, only compost.
Is this something like permaculture?
Yeah, exactly. He's doing like real permaculture, not Western permaculture.
I know. The Western permaculture is a bunch of. And speaking as somebody who lives in Tel Aviv, an urban city, and a lot of people here support permaculture, although we're living in a city. But that said, I mean, permaculture is something that hasn't really gained that much traction.
Yeah, true. Right? But he is now the guru of farming in Mali, and everybody is coming to his doorstep. Please teach us, and he's become really famous thanks to that. And we encourage him to continue.
Amen.
And last thing, in Colombia, there is a design school called Organismo, and they're teaching everybody, communities, how to build their own homes from plastic bottles. This is really, really nice.
Colombia.
Let's see the homes there because
the homes in
nice.
Colombia. Where are the homes in Colombia?
Meanwhile, I'll give you some numbers.
Yeah, tell me about the homes in Colombia. Yes.
That 40% of CO2 emissions are caused by this is the plastic bottles. Yeah, nothing new about that. But soon we will see the homes there.
So this is Colombia.
Yeah, this is Colombia. So 40% of CO2 emissions come from construction and building, and so 3 architectural students actually founded this school, and people from all over the world are coming there to learn how to empower the community and build.
It's fascinating that this stuff is actually, coming out of South America.
Yeah.
That where populations actually, I think, have to find ways to sustain themselves.
Yes, to build and no money and
And maybe that means that we all need to lose some money in order to start protecting the environment.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Take note and heed all kinds of big corporations.
There is a famous equation
that the houses are beautiful.
Yeah, here you can see the houses. They're really, really beautiful. Yeah, it's surprisingly.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay, so this can be done. Yeah, it's actually an optimistic note.
Yeah.
I would live there.
Yeah, me too.
Definitely. So it's slightly more spacious than a small apartment.
Yeah, inside a building, inside a crowded city.
Lovely, Netta.
Yes. So you can see we can change. We can still change, and the Anthropocene is not.
It's not the end of the world as we know it.
Yes.
Just yet. Netta, thank you for being with us. And we move on. Neta's not going anywhere, but we are turning our attention to Gabi Tartakovsky.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Culture-wise, highbrow, finite culture, hit me.
Well, we're going to kick off with pop culture. Back to the Future 2015 marks the 30th, I repeat, 30th anniversary.
Gabi Tartakovsky here to remind me of how old I am.
Yes. The 30th anniversary of this cult sci-fi flick.
First one.
The first one,
yeah.
but still, I mean, Back to the Future 2 was great as well, but there's
Back to the Future 3 sucked.
Definitely.
Thank you.
But 2 was the best in my book. The first one
They usually
also,
are. Godfather 2.
Yes.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes.
So,
yeah.
So the first one, the original classic, is going to be held in very special screenings throughout the world with,
Really?
with live orchestra performing the score. Now, the score is considered a classic as well, composed by Alan Silverstein, who didn't win the Oscars back then. He lost to Out of Africa, another classic film. Sorry, did I say classic? I meant old. So,
okay, note to the audience.
Yes,
we had a discussion outside the studio. No, we had a discussion outside the studio that Back to the Future is a classic, which is ridiculous because
with
some
all
of
due
us...
respect to Martin Sheen, Michael J. Fox is also a Hollywood legend by now.
He
is no longer the newcomer.
He is a Hollywood legend. Too. It has been 30 years.
And a nice guy.
Also, Natalie Portman is a Hollywood legend, and she's young.
And she's about 12.
Yes, she's younger than me.
She's younger than you. There you go.
So.
But Back to the Future with an orchestra
with a live orchestra
the
performing the score. Plus, Silverstein has prepared 15 minutes of new musical segments he composed specifically for those celebratory screenings.
Right.
The first one is held in Switzerland in May, so beware of that.
Okay. And, but you have a longer piece for us.
Yes,
supposedly.
a longer piece from pop culture simply to much more highbrow culture.
This was very highbrow, honey.
Yes, well, it's classic.
It's classic, exactly.
We have a nice piece by Charlotte Attal about the very special school in Jerusalem. We'll see about that.
Let's take a look.
In the Matzah area, a few minutes from Jerusalem, an inconspicuous building houses a unique campus. This is the Ivel Company, founded by Isaac Levy and his wife Orna to help social minorities. They create jewelry working with gemstones, diamonds, gold, and silver. But in the last 3 years, they decided to pass on their knowledge to a community experiencing a real problem integrating into Israeli society: Ethiopian immigrants. Thus was born Mejameria, a jewelry school which introduces students to the profession and teaches them design and business management, reserved only for Ethiopian Israelis. This new beginning is a passion project for company founder Isaac Levy, who, as an Argentinian immigrant, wanted to offer the help that he has not received upon his arrival to Israel.
I, as an Argentinian immigrant, I felt in a way like the Ethiopians feel today. I felt like nobody was looking at me, nobody gave me any chance. And that's why I wanted to start this school with a community that I think needs to be embraced and hugged more than others.
There are 22 students learning in the school, chosen from almost 2,000 who apply each year. However, the criteria to get accepted to Mejameria are a bit different than those of other schools. Students need to be without any education, between the ages of 20 to 50, and in financial need. The selection process is not easy for the founders, who want to offer a new life to all the applicants. But for the lucky few who have been selected, the school gives out a grant of $1,000 per month, which allows them to focus on their study, and also lets them sell their own creations. Stodo Yosef Ben Zelaka was a security guard, and the class gives him entirely new career prospects.
Before the class, I never worked in jewelry, but before moving to Israel, I was already working with my hands, so I was thinking that it could help me to follow the class. First of all, I'm a new immigrant, and the language is new for me, so it isn't so easy. I saw a big change between working as a security guard and learning a new job to be a jeweler. And this class is an opportunity to change my life. It gives me confidence. And if you really want to, you can change your life, and that makes me really happy.
Inspired by Ethiopian Jewish culture, the jewelry of Megameria is created in gold or silver with inscriptions in Hebrew and Amharic. The Megameria diploma is recognized by the state, and those who still have difficulty finding a job can be given one at Ivel. And the Ivel company has aspirations to expand and help other communities. Isaac and Ona want to open another jewelry school in Nazareth, which will be open to Jews, Muslims, and Christians of the Galilee.
Nice. But Gabi, we're missing big news out of Dubai, right?
Yes, a new theme park is being prepared to open in 2016, Motion Gate Dubai, which will include a Smurf zone and all kinds of Sony Pictures classic blockbuster for kids, Ghostbusters as well.
A Smurf zone.
Smurf's zone, when you can Smurf out in Dubai.
In Dubai. Well, honey, this is my Smurf zone. And we're going to leave my Smurf zone and go straight to the news, after which we'll drink some. See you in a few minutes. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be. You know why? Because Tony Grant is here for the spiral viral that is the web review. And coming up after that is such a spiral viral, I'm not even going to hint at it. So,
Yeah, right.
Tony, what do you have for us?
Well, this was brought to my attention, Vanity Fair exclusive interview with Khaled Mashal of Hamas fame.
Of Hamas fame.
Of Hamas notoriety. This
Such
is
a PC way of putting it, yes?
There you go. Okay.
Wow.
Hamas's Khalid Mashal on the Gaza war, tunnels, and ISIS. He, in this interview, which is just fresh off the press, he's refusing to denounce those suspected of murdering 3 Israeli teenagers.
And not only that, he also announces that Mohammed Deif, who is strongman, military man for Hamas, is alive. This is a man that Israel was trying to kill all throughout Protective Edge.
Now, let's just for a second here talk about Graydon Carter, who
Yes.
the illustrious
Graydon,
editor of Vanity Fair, whose hair is even crazier than mine. But a couple years ago, they did, I think it was a cover story about Asma al-Assad, trying to make a fashion plate out of the Syrian dictator's
and
wife.
this was the second before the civil war broke in Syria.
And they took a lot of heat for that. And with this, I think he's stepping right back into that
Right back
sandbox.
into it, but Vanity Fair, you know what, actually, back in the day, in my long journalistic career, they also profiled and interviewed, were the only ones to publish words by Timothy McVeigh, the American who bombed the federal buildings.
Oklahoma City,
but you know, Graydon, more power to him. Yes.
Well, he
certainly
knows how to get people to turn pages, yes. But I think he's a long way from an image makeover in Meshal, if that's what he's going for. And he's got nothing on Renee Zellweger.
Oh God, yes.
Okay, we got to follow up on this story because, of course, there were claims that yesterday she had some wild plastic surgery changes in her new look. She has pushed back and saying, no, she's just living a more fulfilling life, and she's thrilled that perhaps it shows.
Seriously?
Seriously?
I think what I would have said there, no, I just woke up one morning and decided I wanted to look like Naomi Watts.
I know, you've said it before, you've said it now again. And
I know.
So you're...
wow, fulfilling life, push back.
You know, she says that she's glad folks think that she looks different.
Okay.
All right, so
then the Botox is working. Moving on.
Botox is apparently working, or the surgeon's knives. New York Times talks about this story, which is kind of gripping the sports world in the United States. Michael Sam, who was the first openly gay player to be drafted by the NFL, but didn't quite make it so far onto a team. The Dallas Cowboys have released him from practice squad. He has not actually appeared in a regular season game, and he, of course, was originally signed by the Rams, but then cut in training camp. So he actually, he came out, so to speak, with the New York Times originally, and so the Times is following up on this, and it's kind of, I would say it's interesting.
You're right. I mean, I was about to ask because I'm sure the article does not claim that he's not making it into games because of
these sexuality issues.
But they're, exactly.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you look at the guy, I mean, you think to yourself, okay, it's not enough to be like 250 pounds and 6 feet tall to throw a ball, whatever. And I don't know the ins and outs of football because actually, who would want to? But
yes.
but it's an important part of American culture.
Huge.
But when he was first going to be signed on to the Rams, he very publicly kind of kissed his boyfriend on. It was broadcast all over in the States, and I thought to myself, as an American, there's going to be some fallout for this down the line because it is such a macho thing.
Very
I mean,
much,
football, American football, and they're not saying it openly in these stories, but the subtext
Nor will they ever.
is.
I mean, if, and I'm not saying this is the case or that we have information, but if indeed, players of teams refuse or do not want to play with him, that's something that I'm sure, the industry is going to try and hide. It's just interesting.
Or
that
certainly not advertised.
And not advertised, exactly. And this is somebody who, other than coming out, but was also very much sought after by all the teams because he was supposedly, he's supposedly such a great,
Right,
player. So,
right.
there we
So
have it.
anyway, I'm sure it's not the end of his career, so we'll be seeing what happens. And he's, in the meantime, on a completely different note, on a much lighter note, talking about when you have the blues for various reasons, perhaps a breakup. This one woman in Chengdu, China, decided to eat fried chicken for a week at a KFC, and she. I know. I normally don't.
I do it when I'm just a little moody.
I mean, she saw the KFC. She thought she would just see how long she could hold out without. And local media started showing up to see how she was faring.
Right.
And apparently, after about a week, she said that she was getting sick of the taste of chicken.
And she's moving to Ben & Jerry's.
That's where I would go.
Exactly. The comfort food. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can totally see that. She's sick of chicken. Is she sick of him though?
Yeah, I think she's probably over both right now.
Both at
the
this
chicken
second.
and the boyfriend. Another way of working off the blues or stress is, of course, going to the gym. And Defamer talks about someone who ended up at the same LA gym as, I'm going to mispronounce it for the 15,000th time, Shia LaBeouf.
How do you pronounce that?
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
Who recently blamed his outburst at the performance of Cabaret in New York on his method acting.
He was tapping into his inner child.
And just not.
And then
able
just
to,
snapped it. It was his internal 2-year-old. Okay, yeah, having a tantrum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf now. But you know what drives me crazy about him?
Those tights?
That too. Their color.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be this masterful Laurence Olivier type actor to just wreak the type of havoc that he's been,
Yeah, I mean, it's insanely good publicity for Fury, the movie that's out now with Brad Pitt, which is doing gangbusters at the box office.
Right.
But it just happens to coincide with his coming clean about all of his
going cuckoo
outbursts.
for Cocoa Puffs.
Exactly.
Okay, yes.
But it's interesting, what happens when you do work out next to a famous person in a gym? It's happened to all of us.
Every
In my
single
case,
one.
it was Anderson Cooper.
Oh!
Yes.
How much does he
I've
bench?
seen the man in a towel.
Ouch.
Yes, he's very good looking. He's very white.
He's very white.
He's
terribly
white.
He's white.
He's a very congenial man, But
And this is for you,
Yes.
From a moment, your
This
moment
is
in Anderson
not
Cooper.
for public
You and I are
disclosure.
never working for CNN. You know that. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
long story there.
Yeah.
Sarah Jessica Parker is causing some outrage.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
It happens. Okay.
And what?
You know that the 66 Perry Street, what does that say to you?
West Village?
West Village, that's where it was the exterior shot of Sex and the City made very famous. And a lot of tourists sort of take pictures because they think Carrie Bradshaw's going to step out and shake their hand. I don't know.
And give them like some sort of a fashion tip, right?
Exactly. Or one of those, cupcake things.
Magnolia, yes.
Magnolia, yeah. But anyway, she did an impromptu photo shoot for her new shoe line outside of this building, and it caused a ruckus because the residents are saying enough is enough. We're tired of the crowds that are coming here, and now you're like doing a photo shoot, lining up her stilettos there on the sidewalk. And people in Greenwich Village, they're very touchy. They like their neighborhood kind of to themselves.
Oh yeah.
It's very.
As somebody who's never lived there, but only in a run because you couldn't afford it, I understand.
Yeah. It's like move along.
Move
nothing
along,
to see here.
And move your stilettos.
Yeah.
There you go.
But she probably thinks that she put this place on the map and that she has the right to put her shoes there, and
Little does she know.
Little does she know.
Time for one last one.
Annie Lennox has slammed twerking as anti-feminist.
I'm with her on that.
I don't know.
No, twerking is.
Well, she calls. Well, first of all, she calls Beyonce feminist light. which is entering into a fray there. Which,
I wouldn't go head-to-head with that.
Yeah, but she is Annie Lennox.
She is Annie Lennox.
Let's just say she was rocking things out long before Beyonce could, I don't know,
No, I'm
do
a big
anything
Lennox
really.
fan, twerking with all due respect. Come on.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that she probably is right, yeah. It's
Yeah.
maybe not the most feminist thing to do.
But twerking aside, and I think with all this amazing news, it's really time to get drunk. Just kidding.
Yeah, or tipsy.
Or tipsy in that respect. And we are joined in studio by, I'm trying to think of how to refer to you, Gin Ambassador?
Global Ambassador for Hendrix Gin, yes.
I'm loving that.
At your service.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm touching my microphones. David Piper, Global Ambassador. What does that mean? What do you do?
Well, a large part of it I probably can't tell you because it's classified and too early in the morning.
Amen. Yes. I'm leaning back.
I travel the world speaking mostly to bartenders, but also the great drinking public out there, trying to educate them about gin in general and Hendrix gin in particular.
Now, what is it, putting Hendrix aside for a second, what is it that is so compelling about gin? Why is this your drink du jour? Because I got to tell you, I'm a martini girl myself and not a gin martini.
How long have I got?
Oh, my Lord. Okay, the short version.
Oh, the short version.
Yes.
Well, I think to put it in context for now, for many, many years, vodka has been the most popular drink.
I got to tell you, and I'm a big vodka fan here.
Not to not to denigrate vodka, but vodka is flavorless. It has, and vodka makers boast about how pure it is, therefore how little flavor it has. Gin, on the other hand, is all about sort of a complex and subtle and elegant play of botanicals.
Okay, the Tony's sighing here.
We're talking juniper berries.
Yes. So start with a juniper berry, because without juniper berries you can't have gin. And then all the other botanicals, I'll sort of list some of the ones in Hendrix that are in there in a very delicate, subtle way. So coriander, caraway, angelica root, cubeb berries, a special pepper from Indonesia, orris root, orange and lemon peel, and then chamomile,
I'm getting excited here. Okay. Now, all these things that makes gin actually sound like wine. Now, when it comes to the Middle East, because we are sitting in Israel, we are sitting in Tel Aviv. So is this your first time in Israel?
No.
You've been here before.
I've been here
Would you
before,
say that Middle Easterners are gin-drinking people?
No, not really.
There you go.
Not really, no.
So.
But, well, I mean, it's there are two things in Hendrix which I think actually are sort of slightly more Middle Eastern sort of orientated flavors than most other gins. So first of all, we infuse cucumber.
Yeah,
which is,
you brought some cucumbers. I was about to ask you if you're happy to see, or is that just a cucumber?
3 cucumbers.
But 3 cucumbers, exactly. Okay.
Both, actually.
Okay. What does one do with the cucumber and the gin?
Well, when we serve a Hendrix and tonic, instead of the normal lemon or lime garnish, we like to include a little slice of cucumber, because it really brings out the essence of cucumber that we have infused in the bottle and makes it even more refreshing and crisp and clean and cool.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to, put my mind around vegetables and liquor. There's something very British about it, I have to say.
Well, a cucumber is related to a melon, and for a vegetable, it's.
You need to show me how this is done. I mean, I guess. What do you do with the cucumber then? You first of all.
Well, you can have.
What do you do with the cucumber? I just asked that. Okay.
There are many options.
Yes.
Let me show you
what
to
you do with the
cucumber.
Yes. Okay.
There are sort of many different ways you can slice a cucumber. However, I have here one of our own little cucumber slices, which will allow us to do a sort of a long, thin little ribbon, as it were. So
I'm madly in love with you right now. You know that. Ooh.
This is. We'll get rid of the peel because it's.
It's just all the vitamins are there, is what I tell my daughter usually. But
that is where they all are, where most of the flavour is. But this way we'll get both peel and flesh. A cucumber is
a very
it's a misunderstood vegetable.
Misunderstood vegetable.
Very, very misunderstood.
Wow,
there are
look at
over
that.
360 varieties. Most cucumbers contain 96% water, which is more water than a jellyfish. I think it's more water than anything which isn't actually water.
We just blew the lid on cucumbers.
That's amazing.
No, seriously, we exposed. Look at that.
We can do almost anything we want with
so
this.
curly.
I'll just put that into a little kind of
Oh.
A little hole there.
Me like it,
You can
yes.
stretch it around, you can
With your
flip
finger,
it.
yeah, and then,
It
okay.
needs some gin.
It does need, yeah, it does need, I think we need to put a little gin in that.
We certainly do. I mean,
Yeah, but I want you to show me how you do it in the 2 minutes that we have left, because I'm
it's well
beginning to
enough.
fade.
It's well enough talking about it, but this is all about the sense of taste, and for me, that's where the magic comes in, and it's where gin and Hendrix in particular really sort of. It plays a little symphony on your tongue.
It does, it does. David, I'm married, but will you marry me? I mean, seriously, am I the only one about salivating here? Okay.
I have a slot at 1 o'clock.
You have a slot at 1 o'clock,
yes.
yeah. Meet me outside.
I do.
Okay,
So,
yes.
but always advocate responsible measuring. However, it's been hard enough to find ice in your studio. I mean, you've been beamed in from the 21st century with your amazing.
We came through. Do not get.
This is all the ice you have in your studio.
Just enough for that glass.
This is all the ice in the Middle East, honey.
What I'll actually do is get rid of the water that's melted, because we don't want that.
Okay, we got a minute. Go for me.
All right.
This is wow.
I'd estimate that that's about 50 milliliters, which is the proper measure.
Yes,
Somewhere
yes.
down here.
Somewhere down here we had. Look, we have it all prepared.
And I think your assistant's even pre-opened it a bit, so it's
Yes,
not
so
going
to
it's not.
splash open.
We're going to
and
smash
totally
open
ruin
because
the
we take care of our
tonic.
studio, ladies and gentlemen.
Certainly do.
Nice.
I was more concerned with my clothes in your studio.
As I would
both are
be.
important.
No, you are putting
Both
us
are
to
equally
shame.
important. So this
Yes!
yes.
Okay, there we go. Wow.
Now, I also don't have anything to stir it with. However,
I can use my finger. Or you can use your finger. I will drink
sure
anything
you
stirred
can,
yet.
but,
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Beautiful and luscious.
No, this is the highest level of culture we have had. Okay, what does one do before they sip? Tony, I'm sorry, all the time we have is for me to drink. Yes.
Go for it.
And so what do I drink? This is 30 seconds left for air. What do I do before I drink this? Say a prayer.
Clear your mind.
Clear my mind.
Clear your mind.
Okay.
And let the taste do its magic in your mouth.
Okay. David Piper, Anthony Grant, I'd like to
Cheers.
thank you both for being here with me this morning. You are the gin ambassador for Hendrix Gin throughout the world. You have seen it here first. This is not water, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, join us tomorrow morning for another edition of the Morning Edition, where you should be, because things like this happen. It is the Morning Edition on I-24 News. Thank you for being with us.